Mr. Fitzgerald seek recognition.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will
Reserve
report
a
the
point of
amendment.
order.
Point of order is reserved. The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 7910, offered by Mr. Fitzgerald of Wisconsin.
Without objection, the amendment will be considered as read, and the gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes to explain his amendment.
Mr. Chairman, in 2018, in the state legislature, we actually were able to develop and move a bipartisan effort in relationship to a special session that had been called by our governor at the time. We worked together to pass a bill, and then a act was put in place, Act 143. It appropriated $100 million in fiscal year 18-19 to award school safety grants throughout the state of Wisconsin. They went to districts and private schools. Independent charter schools were eligible, as well as tribal schools. It required that the schools submit safety plans to improve their physical security to the Attorney General, to DOJ in Wisconsin. The bill was an unbelievably tremendous success in our state. DOJ awarded $94.5 million to 1,325 school safety grant recipients. What we thought we would do after talking to myself and Congressman Tiffany is just kind of repurpose some of the dollars that are already related to the bill and simply see if we couldn't find a way of allowing either states that have already moved forward with something like this. And a lot of these things were initiated as a result of Parkland, the Stoneman Douglas High School. Or if there are states out there that are contemplating making these moves. And if you look at the 8 bills that are before us today that have been pushed into this omnibus bill, and I even question whether or not some of this stuff has been cross-checked, especially on the personal security items included. But if you look at them, none of them really address what just happened in Texas. There are definitely weaknesses when it comes to physical security in a lot of these school buildings. So, what I have is an amendment that I think is crafted in a way it's not heavy-handed. It doesn't just say that the federal government will in fact just issue these credits directly. It would be in working with the states to develop a strategy where, and I heard some of the other members today say that, hardening schools is not the answer. But quite honestly, I think, a lot of people say if there's anything we can agree on, it would be to improve the physical security of these buildings. Some of them old, they were built in the 30s and 40s, and this stuff hasn't been addressed. And I mean, we could make this available. I think in a bipartisan fashion, there is support for this type of concept. And at the end of the day, I think that's one thing that we're kind of looking for here. So I would hope that we could add this amendment to this bill, and it might be something that would garner some bipartisan support. And before I yield back, I did want to make a comment about one of the earlier amendments that was offered by Mr. Massey. In 1981, I went to basic training in Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And there were 40 17-year-olds, maybe some 18-year-olds, I don't remember. We were all issued M16s. And we used those on live fire ranges. We were taught to assemble, disassemble, and clean those weapons and take care of them like they were our own. So the idea that a 17-year-old isn't up to, or certainly doesn't have the ability to understand how a firearm works or whether or not they can be responsible or trusted with one, it's happening in our armed services each and every day. A new group of basic trainees make their way through, doesn't matter whether it's the Army, the Air Force, or Marine Corps. So I just put that out there as something that is real and it's happening each and every day. And I hope that the members think about that before they may jump too quickly on some of this legislation that I think is moving hastily and has not necessarily been thought through. So with that, I would yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Does the gentlelady insist on her point of order?
I do not insist on my point of
The
order.
gentlelady does not insist on her point of order. I recognize myself in opposition to the amendment. The amendment is well-intentioned, clearly. Unfortunately, it would condition participation in the firearm safe storage program, which we want to promote. We want wide participation in the firearm safe storage program for obvious reasons. And this would condition participation in the safe storage program on an unrelated program best addressed in the Ed and Labor Committee. So I would, with all due respect for the good intentions behind this amendment, I think it's ill-advised to condition participation in the firearm safe storage program on any other program, because we want to encourage it, and especially on a program that's best addressed in another committee. I yield back.